Oh, because I normally have my camera mic plugged in, and I always thought it was that you used to use, but you
No,
don't.
I'm using this.
Okay, well, if it's
You sound
rubbish
fine though.
audio, I do apologise.
Well,
No,
you
I
sound
know I
fine.
sound fine, but the camera audio's on here, and it might be wet from yesterday. God.
Do I keep that in? I don't know. I could keep that in.
Well, we were both recording, so it'll be up to you in the edit. You make your own mind up.
Yeah, I'll keep it in. Welcome
If
back
he has kept
to
it in, he's a dirty boy.
Welcome back to the Jack Wood Football Podcast. I mean, Happy New Year. I mean, that's a way to start the new year, isn't it? Tom, how you doing, mate? We're here for our December reflection or our festive reflection because we've got so much to chat about. How are you?
I'm good. I want to provide some context. It was pouring down with rain on the way out of Fratton Park yesterday, which is why I said the camera's wet. For no other reason whatsoever. There is nothing coming your way in terms of that sort of content. Some people will be delighted by that. Some people might even be gutted, but you never know. Yeah, really good, mate. Really good. Thank you. Back to winning ways for the both of us, which is good news. We've got lots to chat about, as you just said. So I think we should get cracking straight on.
Yes, we've had quite a few people requesting that we get back to do this because
have we?
Well, one person tweeted us, which is a lot of people, really, isn't it? It's more than none, isn't it? So that is something. It's someone that cares about us. So we said that we would sort of touch on lots of different topics and lots of different talking points, and there are lots of different elements that have made up a very busy festive period. We said in the last reflection that it probably would be New Year when we next sat down and chatted, and it is the 2nd of January as we're recording this, and there's a ton of stuff to get through. So we'll begin with Pompey where we normally start. We won't change that running order, but there are a few tweaks that you'll see along the way. We'll begin with Pompey because, like you said, back to winning ways. But as Christmas periods go, we thought it was going to be the Pompey Christmas crumble. It wasn't a crumble because you've won now, and all of a sudden you're going to be absolutely fine again. But it wasn't all plain sailing, Tom.
The Pompey Christmas crumble? Have you said that in your reflection?
I have said, I think that has just gone out on the roundup, yeah.
Oh, Christ. Anyway, yeah.
Well, it was a meltdown at one point.
It was 3 games, Wardy.
Massive, though, isn't it? Season defining, as you like to say.
Season defining. When you set yourself the high standards, then you got to live up to them, haven't you? That's the way I'm kind of phrasing it. I think it's probably the word in the dressing room as well. Yes, I'm a very relieved man after what wasn't I'm not going to call it a Christmas crumble. Some people called it Cliffmas, which has now passed. So it wasn't a steep cliff. Hello to Cliff if you're watching. On the pitch, not great. I just think it was a result of a really busy schedule and more. I know this is a terrible excuse, and I'm not going to use it as an excuse, but more traveling than most maybe over Christmas. Most clubs half the clubs probably got 2 home games, and half the clubs got away games. So, not a great argument. Yeah, it just looked like tired legs, needed a break. We'll get on to yesterday's outcome soon. We started December though. This is the December reflection, so we'll go all the way back to the start of December, which is probably what I want to do the most of the talking about, which is banging 8 goals across 3 games. Probably was our strongest away performance of the season so far at Northampton. That is yet to be topped. That Bolton night will live long in the memory. I was very pleased with us at Shrewsbury too. Paddy Lane said yesterday in his post-match that we let ourselves down for the Fleetwood game, and I completely agree. Not a very poor quality game, flat, not a lot happened. I actually think we were probably unlucky to concede as late as we did away at Bristol Rovers. I thought after we equalised, we showed ourselves in 20 minutes what we're made of, and there were probably maybe 2 or 3 opportunities to score there. Probably should and maybe could have gone on to win it. Rovers aside in a very good spell at the moment, having put on some real shows before and after our visit in December to them. So not too many issues there. And then another really flat game at Exeter where we just couldn't get ourselves going. Unusually poor distribution from Will Norris really kind of set the benchmark for a dull performance. And the Exeter game plan worked an absolute charm on us. Respectfully to them, I think it's probably one of the worst points we'll earn if we earned it this season without having any clear chances to win it. In fact, Exeter probably could have nicked it on 1 or 2 occasions. Yesterday, though, reminded me and probably reminded many others as well of what a talented group of players we have at this club. I said to you last night, I said to you during the day today when we had our briefing, we performed fantastically well in the first half and then earned the result in the second. We showed a different side to ourselves. I will, and I'll refute a lot of what Steve Evans said, but I'll refute the claim that they were the better team in the second half. I think he said there was only one team that wanted to win it second half, and that was Stevenage. I just think that's absolutely not true. They were much better than they were in the first half, Stevenage. I just think he in between the berating of the referee, Charles Breakspear, who, yes, okay, is contentious and has his good and bad games. I thought he was actually half decent yesterday. He failed to mention that Abu Kamara could have had a hat-trick given the open goals that he missed. There was a lot of pressure from Stevenage, not an awful lot to test Will Norris. In terms of clear-cut opportunities that make the keeper work, there wasn't a lot of those. That Kung Fu Nathan Thompson kick on Christian Shady's face is a ridiculous joke. It's just...
Awful.
Yeah, it's just no place for it, really, is there? It's whether he's meant to do it or not. I just think you don't go leading with your foot that high, do you? He's actually cut his face as well. So hoping Sadie's okay. And yeah, despite his whinging, I thought the ref did okay. I am now fully bought into this idea that Stevenage are a great side, by the way. Not that I didn't believe it beforehand, but I probably hadn't seen it in the flesh like the likes of you, Nappers, and Jakey had, and you're all telling me on T-Lop how good they are. I can completely see why they've accumulated the amount of points that they've got to get them to where they are. Tough ask for us to win in the circumstances after an indifferent December, Warding. We applied ourselves brilliantly. Special mention for Paddy Lane. He probably had his best month in a Pompey shirt in December, and he was bang on form, banging them in. 7 goals, 4 appearances now from 17 starts. I had the pleasure of chatting to him a few months ago. Fantastic person, brilliant footballer. He's on fire, and long may it continue. Yeah,
it's been it's still been fine, hasn't it? I think that's the most important thing. And like you said at the start,
got through it.
You got through it, and also you've built yourself a platform that you could get away with a bit of a tricky patch. Pompey in previous seasons haven't been able to do that. You've had inconsistent starts. You've maybe had a Christmas crumble. I'll use that word again and that phrase again, and then it has sort of fallen apart.
Such an idiot.
But
Christmas crumble.
But this time you can get away with a few drop points. I think drawing to Fleetwood and drawing to Exeter, you look back on those games and you probably do think you should be picking up more points from them. And you look at Fleetwood and the form that they've been through and the fact that they've had to sack their manager and their second manager of the season. Pompey should be beating that type of opposition. Exeter, awful run, and you actually helped them stop that losing streak they were currently on. So you didn't lose that game, but you probably should be winning it in the grand scheme of things. And when looking at it from a league table perspective, which is sometimes dangerous, but we look at the expectations that you've set, and I would agree with that. You have set yourself an expectation, and Pompey have set themselves an expectation that you should be performing better against those type of opposition, and you didn't get through that with wins, but you got through it, and it's now time to sort of regroup and go again. I think you're another club similar to Oxford, and it's a nice transition onto this Oxford chat, that are going through this sort of fitness, tiredness, lethargic, quick schedule of games and having to sort of find their way through it. And with Oxford, it's been an awful period for injuries. We've got an entire first 11 in the physio room right now, over 11 players unavailable through fitness, which is a nightmare. I think we're not the only club. There are lots of clubs going through an injury crisis. I mean, try and name me a League One club that aren't in desperate need of reinforcements this January. The window's now open. That is something that brings the new year along with it, the transfer window, and there's going to be a lot of clubs looking to recruit during that period of time. I think Oxford are one of those. I don't think January could come quicker, to be honest. We definitely do need some new faces in the door, and hopefully we can get that quite quickly. We've got a really good squad. We've got ourselves into a good position, and like again, I used the same saying with Pompey. You've built yourself a platform. We could get away with this sort of tricky period because of the good start to the season. It can't continue. We've got to get back to winning ways, and thankfully yesterday it started. But we're able to go through a patchy time and hopefully then come through. Players can come back, and Des Buckingham can start actually trying to implement the principles that he wants to implement with a full fit squad. He's started to do it, but he's got his hands tied behind his back, I think, for a lot of these games and going into a lot of these matches in the early
First
start.
away win yesterday.
But it is his first away win, and it's the only away game I didn't go to. I went to Cheltenham, went to Northampton, he lost both of them. I went to Reading, we drew that game. Didn't go to Charlton on New Year's Day, and he went and won. So I'm never going to an away game ever again. I've been to quite a few away games over the festive period, been to all of the home games, and I'd say the Charlton one felt like the most important, and I wasn't there, so maybe I'll just sort of stay away. But a really good result, and that felt quite defining. I don't like using that word, but it felt important because we're able to start the new year well. We had to make a lot of changes. It was a really threadbare team. lots of players playing out of a position, lots of pre-match doubt, but we got through it. And I think sometimes it's finding a way to win that's important. And in previous seasons, in previous games, we haven't been able to do that. Thankfully, yesterday we did. It took a really good strike from Oshin Smith, but we got over the line and we won the game. More on Charlton later, because they're a side really struggling, and I think Oxford did see that. But on reflection, yeah, up and down December for both parties. Oxford, let's get some players fit and start seeing the proper Des Buckingham Oxford United. But I'd say 3 wins or something over that period, you probably take that. We're still 5th. We're still in the playoffs. We're still in conversation. And ultimately, it's better than we all thought we would be in this position. And sometimes it's boring, but that's the best way of looking at that time. Let's touch on some other clubs that are impressing us this month, Tom. There's been quite a few.
Done in 10 minutes on there. I think that's a record.
Very good. Maybe it's because we haven't won every game this month. Maybe that's it. We won't speak about the fact that we got thrashed by Peterborough. Northampton beat us, but they're a good team, and Cheltenham did us during this December month. We'll touch on them, the praise side of things in due course, but that did happen this month as well. Let's touch on Bolton. Tom, you're going to sort of take charge
on... It's the briefest mention of Oxford's losses ever.
Well, we lost those games, but we also, thrashed Burton, got away with the Cambridge game and beat Charlton, and that's all that really matters, isn't it?
Well, absolutely.
It's great credit though to the other sides that beat us, because it made a tricky away trip, most of those, I'll be honest. Tom, Bolton, let's fire away on Bolton. They've had a good month, and they're second in the league. They're chasing you down. After you beat them, we sort of feared the worst for Bolton, but since then they've kicked on and they've picked up some really important wins.
Yeah, they were, I think it was 10 wins out of 11 in all competitions prior to their Fratton Park trip, which... Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, you spoke about pretty much build up there heading into a game. I think that was, you did some fantastic work on the build up, and we spoke about it at length, both privately on here, on T-Lop. We were billing it as an early title decider for the sake of YouTube and for maybe the benefit of various different people like yourselves who are watching this to be slightly more interested in what we had to say. But I don't think, I think it delivered in terms of the game, that one. I really do. It certainly felt like a night where that would reveal League One's best outfit at that moment in time, and it proved to be Portsmouth. A standout, maybe even a breakthrough night for Cassini Yengi, if you will, in the absence of Colby, and as I said at the top, a night that we'll all remember for a long while. It could have Christ, edit that bit out. That was terrible. I tried to say about 3 words at the same time there. Could have been a different story completely. Dion Charles miss, I think, is actually a compliment to Will Norris. Just the way he parries it and it comes back out to Dion Charles, and he just can't quite get it to hit his foot in the right position. Does that make any kind of sense? Wrap his foot around it, I suppose, is maybe the more orthodox way of describing something like that. You're right, though. That gap is closing. They are catching us up. And, I think it was it 3 out of the 4 top sides won yesterday? Or maybe even 4 of the top sides won yesterday. So, yeah, because it was ourselves, Bolton, Peterborough, and yourselves, wasn't it? So that would have been it. But yeah, that gap's closing. That Santos Red changes the complexion of their game against Bristol Rovers when they went those back-to-back losses. Since then, everything north of that in the month of November has been absolutely remarkable. Bolton keeping the most clean sheets of any side in all top 4 divisions in 2023 in all competitions. They finished off the year with 2 of them. We mentioned the gap. Patchy form halted yesterday from a Pompey point of view. It is certainly going to be one hell of a season, second half of the season between us two. And we were talking about this earlier, the 5 or 6 teams below us, or do we shorten that to 4 or 5? Or where are we kind of pitching it?
This is a video on its own, to be honest. But
maybe we should leave it for then. But
this feels like a really good time. You just stumbled across a really good idea here.
A gem.
A little mid-season predictions. No, we wouldn't ever do that. That'd be
got to be happening at some point, as in post-January predictions.
Maybe. But no, it's an interesting point. No, I think Derby, by the way, and I'll spoil this later. I'll put this in because I'm going to be chatting about Derby in a moment. And I think Derby, for me, are still a top 2 contender. I don't know if Oxford are a top 2 contender, to be honest with you. There's still a long way to go. Maybe that's me being an Oxford fan and looking to be slightly more reserved on it. Points-wise, you probably have to say we are. We've got 46 points. It's a 5-point gap, 7 points on you. Look, it's mathematically, of course we are, but you have to look at the way that Oxford's form has gone recently. And since Des Buckingham's come in, it has been, very, very inconsistent. And ultimately, the one thing we can tell you for sure, and this is not going to provide any predictions, if you're going to get in that top two, you've got to find consistency. And right now, Oxford haven't got that consistency. That's probably why I'm a little bit more reserved on it. I'd say Derby definitely are. I'd say Peterborough definitely are. And of course, you and Bolton are currently in that position. Where do you draw the line for a top two? I don't know. You probably would say, all right, Oxford are probably... I honestly don't know, because I then feel bad that you're not putting Barnsley in there, because there's only a 3-point gap and there's still a lot of games to play. I think the top 6 list is far more definitive. I think from Blackpool, from 8th basically upwards, is the top 6 chat. The top 2 chat, I think, is a little bit more blurry. I don't know about you. I think there's a lot of teams that can pick up points.
Yeah, go with that.
We've only played 25, 26 games. There's still a long way to go. There's a transfer window. There's opportunity for players to come back and get fit. There's managers that can have their head turned, like Oxford's did, and like other managers will do during this period. I don't think it will happen to these top 6 clubs, but you just never know. I mean, Steve Evans is linked to a move to the Championship every time there's a gaffer that goes missing there.
In the last, sorry to cut across you, between the last monthly reflection, we had all the John Messino, is he going to Plymouth saga, and then he just completely ruled it out. So the only thing I would add on the top 2, top 6, where to draw the line thing, the Oxford Pompey thing, I really hope it doesn't happen, of course. I know you'll probably hope it does. Well, you definitely will hope it does. But those 7 points, that's literally a 3-game swing. If we get 3 games wrong, you get them spot on. That's it. That displaces either team. So I think within the 9-point region, how many is it to Barnsley? Is it 9 to the top for Barnsley?
Barnsley, yeah, and they're on. They're 10 points from you.
Okay, but that's a 4-game swing. So maybe that's slightly more. But then that's, it's 3 games is 9, isn't it? And then you're a point within it. So, I think
another way, you won't like this example either, but we spoke about Pompey and Bolton when you played against each other. When you beat them, there was a really significant gap then. You thought, right, Pompey are going to go on and they're going to really kick on. Look, you've done well to win yesterday and you're still in a fine position. But if they win their game and they go above you. So, and that's because you've dropped some, let's be honest, some quite silly points over the Christmas period. Tough games away from home, but you've dropped points that you should be winning. And Bolton have been, I think they've picked up the most points in the Football League over the festive period. They've done a fantastic job. So that's how close it can be. Ultimately, this is why this conversation is interesting, but also a waste of time. We can't predict really how things are going to go.
It's interesting, but it's also a waste of time.
Well, not a waste of time, but there'll never be answers that we can sort of stamp down. We can basically just have this conversation and go, this is very, very tight. And let's move this conversation on by saying this is very, very tight. And there's a lot of clubs on very similar points.
Let's do that.
And I don't quite know how it's going to go. I hope for the best Oxford can sort of stay where they are and only improve. But, if we lost yesterday, it'd have been all doom and gloom again. It's amazing what 1 point can do and what one game can do, sorry. Are we ready to move on to Peterborough, or have you touched on Bolton in all its glory?
I think I've touched on Bolton in all its glory. One thing I will say, in the last couple of moments at the time of recording, I've just seen that Peter Chioso has been recalled to Rotherham.
I saw that, yeah.
Now, I thought my mic was about to fall into my lap then. You're talking posh. Sorry, you're talking about Peterborough. I shouldn't have said that. Areas.
Yeah, I'm talking about rather posh, mate. Oxfordshire.
But I just wanted to throw that in just in case you hadn't seen it, but you have, so that's fine. I'm sure that will make up quite a lot of your conversation. And could that be one of our little season-defining nuggets?
Maybe. I mean, there's going to be a few players that they've got to keep hold of. Kyoto's is one of those that obviously they can't do, but he's on loan. It was on loan. These next players I'm going to be speaking about that have been phenomenal during December and for a large part of the season, they've got to keep hold of and they actually own them. Poku's one of them. There's going to be interest. Mason Clark is going to provide interest. Ronnie Edwards always provides interest. Johnson Clark-Harris, we all thought was going to be completely frozen out. He scored 2 goals the other week. I know Ricky J. Jones has come in and he looks to be that long-term successor, but Johnson Clark-Harris will probably be on the move in January. Doesn't look like he's going to sign a new contract. Ultimately, they're going to have to spend a bit of money, the club that want to go and get him, but we expect him to move. There are going to be players, and that's the one thing you've got with Peterborough. They are a fantastic side. I think Peterborough this is the best Peterborough side we've seen in League One for a long, long time. Better than some sides that have been promoted. And better than some Peterborough sides that have been promoted, I mean by that. And probably better than some other sides that have got out of League One, because I think they're that good. They picked up 11 points from a possible 15 over the course of December. That's 5 games, 3 wins and 2 draws. against all types of opposition, they've found a way to win. They picked up 11 points over the festive period. They've beaten Oxford, they've beaten Derby, and they got a draw against Barnsley. That's all the sides competing with them, other than a few others, but most of the sides competing with them in that bracket for the top 6. And they're unbeaten and won 2 out of those 3 fixtures. And that's a fantastic way of sort of looking at where they are at and who they're trying to be competing with, and if they can take some points off, let's be honest, promotion rivals. And they've done that phenomenally well. They absolutely smashed Oxford, thoroughly deserve that. Yesterday against Derby, they were the far better side, have won it. Barnsley, it was 2-2. On reflection, they probably feel as though they should have won that. So they come out of this period beating some rivals in their current challenge. They've also been really good, and they went 1-0 down against Shrewsbury, and they came back. Shrewsbury hasn't lost a game when they've been 1-0 up this season, and that remains the same other than the game against Peterborough this month. They show great character. The talent is obvious, but we're starting to see some character and spirit in this Peterborough side. And those are 2 traits that we start talking about sides that, you know, mean serious business in League One. We spoke about it with Pompey in the early stages of the season. There's talent in that team, but they've got that character, that spirit, that resilience to deal with setbacks. For the first time this month, I think we saw the real roots of that come out of this posh side. And that's a really, really good place to be. I think they've been really good. And they definitely deserve to be in this segment. With Derby, 5 wins out of 6 in December. I know they lost yesterday. It doesn't fall into that category, but even so, they were great. 15 points from a possible 18. Sorry, more than that. They drew the other game against Wickham. So it's 16 points from a possible 18, which is phenomenal. Finding a way to win. Immense character against Oxford. You felt in that second half they knew they were going to win, and that is not comfortable when you're an away supporter, or sorry, a home supporter, but an opposition fan, knowing that your side that you're playing against genuinely believe as though they're going to tear you apart every time they come forward. They came back from a 2-goal deficit. They were great in that second half, thoroughly deserved to win it. And I think we all walked away, Oxford fans, going, right, if that's the level, we've got to start getting back on track quickly, because Derby looked like monsters, and that's a good monster. You know, when you look at Paul Warren sides in previous years, they've become this robust, boisterous, robust, but also sort of clinical outfit, and that's this Derby team, I think, in abundance right now. And when you can start building those elements to perfection, they're going to have a fantastic season. Still a top 2 contender for me, no doubt about it. Last month gave me all of the proof they can do it. Yesterday, I will briefly touch on that. They looked hard against Peterborough, a little bit lethargic. Posh were phenomenal in that game, so a little bit of a balancing act on that front. But ultimately, they've been great. And Derby, they have to be in that top 2 conversation, and you know, we'll speak about it every time to the end of the season. But we sat on here and spoke about Paul Warren being a manager that could have lost his job. I think he's probably got one of the most secure jobs in League One right now.
Bizarre, isn't it? It's really weird. It's such a mental league, isn't it? It's just, anyway. Some people still think he's the wrong man for the job.
Yeah, Jake Tong famously said that he wasn't the right man for Derby County, and maybe he isn't. I'll be honest, it's not looking good for that call right now. I'll be totally frank. Let's move on to the underwhelming side. Tom, you can start with.
He does get a lot right, though, Jakey. You got to give him a bit of credit. He gets a lot back. He does. Maybe just not that one.
He went bold on Derby, and he went bold because the problem is a lot of his takes are, like you say, perfection. He went bold on a Derby team that did, I think, some good recruitment. You can spin it both ways. They were older players, but they had a great summer. They built a Paul Warren team, and we always knew that Paul Warren sides do tend to start quite slow. It was just, are they going to delay this slow start, and how long are they going to do it for? But they found their groove right now, and they look unstoppable. They did lose yesterday, but that doesn't sound as good in the sentence, does it? No. Tom, start with the underwhelming section. Fleetwood, we've noted down here a few things to say on them. We have the pleasure of speaking to Naples on a regular basis. That boy is going through footballing nightmares at the moment, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's not a great time to be a Fleetwood Town fan, and to be fair, they haven't really had anything to shout about all season, have they? It's one of those where, I mean, he said it himself. If you go through 3 managers in a season, there's a very good chance you're probably going to get relegated, and you probably ought to get relegated because, we look at it with the news of Wayne Rooney today with Birmingham City, right? That's a sign of the ownership getting it wrong from the outset and probably making a decision they shouldn't have done. It's probably slightly different from a Fleetwood point of view because although the results reflected the Rooney style sort of thing, they weren't in a situation where John Eustace was doing as well as he was. Anyway, back to League One. It's one of those where you kind of sat there thinking, would it have been better off if they just kind of given a bit more time to Scott Brown, Nappers will probably say that they should never have got rid of him. Now in hindsight, everyone's got an A level in hindsight, right? But he was said, to be fair to him, he was saying it when it was getting bad under Lee Johnson, and let's be honest, it never really got good, did it? It got good for a handful of games, and then all of a sudden there was a bit of a relapse.
Basically.
Yeah,
it was the honeymoon period, and
the honeymoon period, and then it just kind of dissipated into nothing.
And this is an interesting game that we didn't speak about in the briefing, Tom. If you look at their starting 11, right, and again, we have to look at lots of different factors. The fact they've gone through, this is their third manager or fourth manager if you count the caretakers. If you look at things like form and confidence, it plays a massive part in football. If you look at their starting 11 on paper, I think they've got a better starting 11 than Cheltenham. I don't think they've got a better manager. That's the biggest reason why Cheltenham have turned it around. Darryl Clark's been phenomenal. That's a massive difference. But you look at their 11, I think it's better than Cheltenham's. I think it's better than Carlisle's. I think it's probably better than Exeter's. Reading's tough. I think Reading and Fleetwood are fairly similar on paper. Burton, I'd say they're probably better than. Cambridge type, but you could edge Fleetwood, and there's arguments to suggest that. Wigan, not so much, and that maybe is where the gap sort of tends to go. I actually would probably say they're better than Shrewsbury, but Shrewsbury always find ways to beat a lot of opposition this season, and important oppositions. And obviously the other way around, on yesterday when they beat them 3-1, which is I think a bad result when you look at Shrewsbury and the fact that they actually aren't a very good footballing side, but they're good at trying to finding ways to get results against sides that they need to beat. But you look at the 11, and the point of that was, you look at that 11, it is better than a lot of their relegation rivals, but so massive factors are letting them down. The managers and the managerial circus at Fleetwood this season is one of them. They've gone through far too many managers, and like you say there, he famously said that if you have more than 2 sackings in a season, you should get relegated, or you should never be able to sack the second manager in a season. And obviously Fleetwood have gone and done that. The players, I think, have let down the managers. I'll be honest, I think they have. They've got a really, really good squad there, or definitely an 11 squad, and depth has to be questioned, but that's what January is about to sort of test. Can they improve on what I think is a mid-table League One 11? But you've got a manager there in Lee Johnson, who, let's be honest, we both came in. I didn't really rate as a manager. That he's had good times. He's also had bad times.
Streaky Lee, innit?
Very, very streaky. He does say some strange things in interviews after the game and before a game. When it goes well, you sort of go, maybe he's a really good coach at this level. When it goes badly, you go, what a horrendous appointment. And that's what comes with being a streaky manager. The bottom line is the players got him sacked. And look, Nappers is somebody that I know, has a good relationship with the players or a lot with some of the players, which I think is really nice. And it's great to have that sort of connection between what we do here and the players that are playing for the football club that he loves and he supports and goes everywhere for. But I think the bottom line is a lot of those players that he probably speaks to on a regular basis are a reason why they probably aren't performing as well, because they did get Lee Johnson sacked. From what we understand, there's a lot of those players, and it is now public knowledge, a lot of those players probably weren't overly happy with the appointment of Lee Johnson in the first place, and weren't happy about the way that Lee Johnson set about executing some of his principles and the way that he wanted to form his squad. He kept saying openly that he wanted to get rid of a lot of players and bring a lot in January. I mean, as a player in a dogfight in some key games, that probably isn't very comforting. No. So I think the players have got to look at themselves a little bit. They weren't helped by the managerial situation, but these players have got a manager sacked, and they've now got to start playing for a gaffer that hasn't actually ever managed a football club before. So
do you know what might just get them out of it is, and 2 players that you haven't mentioned, is if they can hold on to them, that is. And I know there's a video coming out of transfers that should happen on the channel soon, but you haven't mentioned Junior Katerna. You also haven't mentioned Phoenix Patterson in that starting 11, right? And those 2, if they can be sort of arm round them, manager gives them a little hug, goes, you are a talented player, you can do this. If there's a galvanising of that team that you've mentioned, could they?
Good day is the famous phrase.
Could they?
Good day.
But the other thing, and you've written down there as well, is the improvement of their peers. So the Cheltenham resurgence under the new management, the way in which Reading have gone about their business recently, all of a sudden the teams around them are starting to pick up, and you're just a little bit worried that if Fleetwood don't do the same, they're going to be left down there. That meme with the guy in the front room of the house going, where is everyone? It would be a little bit like that at the bottom of League One.
Next up, Lincoln City. They're also in this pretty disappointing category that we do every single month, and it's not nice, but we have to throw teams in here, and Lincoln are one of those. Injuries have caused them problems. I think they are in it's a bad run, isn't it? You look at the league table, you look at the form table, and you look at where Lincoln thought they could be at the start of the season, and Lincoln, they do have expectations to be sort of fighting in and around the top 6 conversation, and they aren't, and I don't see them being there. They could and they should be looking to reinvest in the January window and get themselves back on track. They need some strikers because they have been basically playing this whole period of time with no centre forward and a very thin bare squad with lots of issues when it comes to fitness. But ultimately, they are in 11th place. They've lost 4 games on the bounce. It's been a very, very bad period. And Scabello is somebody that hasn't, again, they took a bit of a risk on him when he came in. He has now got to turn a side round again. He sort of came in and got some really good early results, and then since then it's been a little bit topsy-turvy. He's got to try and stabilise things, because already there will be teams around them that will smell blood and think they can get back in the positions that Lincoln currently find themselves in too, which is around mid-table, and that's ultimately where a lot of clubs will see safety at, and Lincoln want to be sort of getting into that next mini-league table that we speak about often. But yeah, Tom, briefly on Lincoln City, it's been tough. We speak to Jake a lot as well, as we do with Nappers and Fleetwood, and those two in the group chat, they're probably the most unhappy pair that we could possibly be.
It's a shame, isn't it? It is a shame that both our most underwhelming sides, the two clubs who probably know the most about in League One other than our own. Although definitely the two that we know, the two that we most hear about, certainly from a Jakey boy point of view, who's incredibly house proud of his Lincoln City. So to be fair to an extent, Nappers, I think we're all a bit house proud about our teams in Teal-Off, aren't we? Because we can never get through a match review without actually both of us talking about the team and then whoever's doing the game. 2 points from 15 in December for Lincoln. It's pretty shocking, isn't it? So, that's not even a bad run. That's a honking run, isn't it? So, and that's 2 draws, and the rest are all losses, aren't they? So,
they've had tough games as well. I mean,
very tough games. I was just about to say,
we should mention that. They've played, them better than I do. They played Bolton, they played Derby during this run too. I know those are 2 definites. They think
Derby away as well.
Yeah, Derby away.
One thing on that,
Blackpool's
and Jakey will be the first to tell you this, right? They were always excellent at top 6 sides away from home last season. That is, I think, maybe one of the partial differences is you'd actually get, and I think it's been the last couple of seasons. I remember Jake always talks about that win at Portman Road, doesn't he? Or was it a win at Portman Road or a draw at Portman Road? It'll kill me for saying
this. It was a win,
I
and didn't they get a result with Plymouth as well last season? Yeah,
they got a result with Plymouth, and then they would normally take points off your Derby County sort of archetype, top of League One kind of sides. They would also, maybe in years gone by, gone to a place like Portman Road and taken points. But those two, they've gone there and got nothing. So maybe that's the difference between this Lincoln of this season and the Lincoln of last.
Another club that needs to reinvest, to be honest, and another club that needs to recruit in the January window is Charlton, because it's been tricky.
And I think they will, by the way.
I think they will. They've already started to. Lots of rumours already coming out of Charlton to suggest they're looking to spend, and 2 permanent deals as well. And I expect to be more. I think they'll use the loan market. There's going to be a couple of players. And I don't know about you, Tom, but I feel there's a lot of players are being recalled. More than we've seen in previous windows. A lot of Premier League clubs, a lot of Championship clubs are looking to go, right, these are doing well at League 2, League 1 level. Can we recall them and send them out again at in a higher place, in a higher division, So I think we're going to carry on seeing that, and I think Charlton are going to hopefully use that to their advantage, as well as spend big. It's the first window with their proper new owners. I think they probably had them in place sort of during the summer, but it's now they've got their feet under the table. It's time to actually start spending money and putting sort of the money where their mouth is. I think they will start doing that. They have got finances to back it up. They've got to spend it right. They've got to back the manager. If Michael Abbott is the manager that they're going to back, I think they will. It was the manager that they appointed. I think they've got to back him. There's already conversations about Michael Appleton losing his job. It's been a very, very bad period. They haven't got an identity. You're struggling to see the style of play. Injuries again are hindering them, like every club we've spoken about, you feel in this reflection. But ultimately, they do need to spend some money and reinforce some really key areas defensively going forward. They've got Alfie May, but I think they need another striker. They need a bit more creativity. They've got some really good wingers, but you can't really rely on consistency there. They've got to tie a few things down when it comes to contracts. Blackett Taylor's out of contract in the summer. He's been phenomenal this season. They've got to find a bit of stability in that sense. They've got a lot to do in a January window. I don't think they're going to push for the playoffs, but they've got to start finding some building blocks and getting them in place. And I know it's the repetitive cycle, but they've got to put them in place now, build a style, get Michael Appleton properly backed, get the fans back on side, which isn't easy. And then I know it sounds ridiculous speaking about this in January, but it looks like they're going to have to go again next season, but start putting things in place now. I know it's not nice. I mean,
they won't want to hear that, will they?
They won't want to hear it, but I don't see them climbing into the top 6, Tom. I think they've got to.
Neither do I.
And I don't think they're ready to. I don't think they're ready to. They're not in a position where they should be thinking about that yet. It's boring. It's not very nice. It's not very exciting, but you've got to try and get the tough times out the way now. And I think that's going to have to be maybe doing a rebuild in the middle of the season and then looking ahead to next season. But
feel
they need
like
to find some stability.
For the last, I want to say 8 seasons, Charlton have had a rebuild season where they finish between 8th and 12th. And I think of some of the Charlton fans I know, and they're just so apathetic about the whole thing. And that's not me trying to take the mick, but it genuinely must be so excruciating. This is our 7th season in League One now. And that's why I think it's turned as quickly, while some pockets, or certainly the away end at Leyton Orient, turn against Michael Appleton. And was it the Valley, do we think, Jack, from yesterday, from what you saw? Is that on as well?
It looked toxic. It felt toxic. It was silent for a large period. And again, that's not we know the Valley isn't going to be full, and I don't think they expect it to be full. They're not in the league they should be in. They feel, with their stature and reputation, it won't be a sellout Valley. It hasn't been for a long time, unfortunately. But it was silent at large times. It was really toxic at the end of the game. Michael Appleton is not winning over the majority of the fan base. It wasn't right, and like I said, it's not nice for a football fan, and especially it's probably even worse coming from somebody that's got a side in the playoffs and also that isn't a Charlton fan. And that's the big thing, saying that you've got to again start again. It's not nice, is it? But ultimately they've got to, because they've got to tear the squad apart again, and we thought they did that in the summer. But issues.
We were very impressed with the recruitment, weren't we? I remember speaking on here and saying how impressed we were.
Kamara, for example, is somebody that has come in and he's been injured the entire time. Alfie May's been a success. If they didn't have Alfie May, they probably would be in a relegation battle, and that's not.
He's out at the minute, isn't he? Do we know how long?
I think it's a back injury. I think he had a back injury in the game before that. They played him, and then it got worse, and he couldn't play against Oxford. So you'd argue there maybe bad man management, but he was going to miss one of those either way. But yeah, and I'm not even looking to take the mick. Without Alfie May, where would they be? They'd be in a. He's the top goal scorer. He scored 15, 16 goals this season.
15, yeah.
It's a phenomenal goal rate for a side that are 14th in League One, and have had to go through various managers already this season in a topsy-turvy, very young, youthful team that don't quite know where they're going. I think it's a fantastic indictment on him, but he won't be happy that he's currently performing at a side that, let's be honest, are in mid-table and not competing where they want to be. Let's move on to Exeter, because we've got lots to get through, and this is why it'll be a slightly longer edition of the reflection, but there's so many.
Love a long edition, mate. Love it long.
Exeter. Sticking with Caldwell briefly on this, because we have spoken about Exeter before on these reflections in length. Ultimately, he's still in charge. He got a good point against.
Don't know how.
I don't. He got a good point against you. He won, of course, the game recently, which is really, really important. It's the first win since the middle of September, which is ridiculous. We looked at it live and we said that can't be the case, but it was. Their win over Wycombe Wanderers at home with a last-minute penalty save was their first win since mid-September, which is crazy. But they are inside the bottom four. Losing to Reading, another relegation rival yesterday, didn't help that, and Reading improving isn't going to make that any easier. But Exeter, you feel as though, get January right. They've stopped with Gary Caldwell. They released a statement to say they're not going to sack him. They're going to back him. They've done that. So fair play to Exeter. If they stay up, you'd say it's genius management from the hierarchy there. But it can go one of two ways, can't it? It can look like you're being stubborn, or it can look like a genius, loyal move.
Would you say that the January window is the most important for Exeter of any other League One club? Given that they're going to now back Gary Caldwell, stick or twist, they're sticking with him. If he gets it right, this could be it. If he doesn't, because let's not forget, first part of the season, Exeter, top of the league, came to Fratton Park, gave us a really good game, although we beat them 1-0. They had some really good results against some top sides at the early part of the season. So it's probably the biggest month for them out of any club, other than
What's more
your
important?
Oxfords.
What's more important, promotion or staying up?
Well, that depends who you ask.
Exactly. But it's a really interesting question because if you look at to answer
So
your
you could
question,
either say Pompey or Bolton or Exeter or Cheltenham Fleetwood is what you're saying,
well,
or even Derby or yourselves.
I think
or
anyone from first to eighth is important because they want to stay where they are or get themselves into the top 6 or beyond.
Yeah.
So you have to put them in there.
Yep.
But then you're speaking about Charlton a second ago, who are 14th in the league. Everyone would go, what's the point in doing all your recruitment now? You're not going to go down. You're not going to go up, most likely. Why do it? But they need to because
for the sake of the fans, I suppose.
For the sake of the fans and the fact they've got to start looking like they're encouraging everybody involved, because right now it looks pretty bleak. You then also got to look at it and go, right, where do you cut off the relegation battle and who needs to really strengthen to make sure they don't get dragged into one of those? Everyone in the bottom 4, though. Reading, based on their financial restriction, be interesting to see, but you think they probably will strengthen. Burton and Cambridge, I think Burton probably are going to be all right. I think Cambridge are going to be all right as well with their new manager. I think the bottom 4 is the bottom 4 now with Reading in there. That looks like there's going to be a slight gap starting to be created. There's a 5-point gap between Reading and Burton already. So I think Reading have got to strengthen, and everybody in that bottom 4 has got to strengthen. I think this is one of the biggest Januaries we're going to see from a lot of clubs. I think a lot of clubs are going to do quite a lot of business in this window because there's still a chance that a lot of teams can still get themselves into a position of promotion that and right now aren't or are, but don't want to fall out of it. And there's 4 teams there that I think are fighting. Well, 5 teams are fighting for 4 positions, and if you fall in one of those 4 positions, you're going to be playing League 2 football next season. So it's going to be really tight. I agree. Exeter's a massive January for them for sure.
It's the reason why there's going to be so much movement in the transfer window is because the league is so tight, like at both ends. So it's one of those, isn't it? Where yes, lots to happen. I'm chatting Shrewsbury as well, aren't I? It's this last little before we get on to a little bit more positive managerial chat from yourself.
Yes, I feel like we've been quite negative for the festive.
We have a little bit, haven't we? Yeah, we need to invoke a little bit more seasonal positivity, don't we? But we're not going to get any for a moment.
No,
or
not
two.
from here.
Shrewsbury losing all their games until yesterday. Matty Taylor has bought himself some time, an important win for them, but this is the December reflection, and as we said at the top of the video, this is talking all about December and pretty much nothing else, though we've touched on other areas, January being one of them. They lost 4 out of their 5 league games last month, scoring 1 goal in that time, and that was against Peterborough. So Matty Taylor will point to their injuries. Again, another club stricken by injuries. I feel like this has probably been one of the themes of the video. They'll be thankful for January's arrival, as many clubs are, as we've already mentioned. Oxford, one of those. That isn't going to wash with the fan base, I don't think, for too much longer. There's already pockets, and social media would suggest that, and maybe even, being there myself, when we turned them over 3-0, they weren't particularly happy then. Whether the result does anything to clear up what is already a bit of a mess for Shrewsbury at this moment in time, whether it appeases the fan base at all, I don't know, given the opposition that they played against. Their loss sent them rock bottom. We've spoken about Exeter and Cheltenham. They're still only those 2 to have scored fewer goals this season than Shrewsbury. They'll be one in change, and they'll be one in change sharpish.
Yeah, some strikers would be good, wouldn't it, in January? That's what it feels like. Let's brighten the mood. Because there are some positive aspects to this video, believe it or not. And the next one is Cambridge. They've had a manager change. Speaking about managers there, they've had a manager change, and it's worked out well. I didn't want to see Mark Bonner go. I was gutted when I saw it, but he has gone. And his successor, Neil Harris, has come in. And to be fair, Tom, I think he's done well. I think he has done well. He's picked up some really important wins. He's got some good draws on the road. They went 2-0 down against Charlton. They came back and won that game, and drew that game 2-2. You look at Charlton and go, is that a great result? They're not in great form, but to be 2 goals down and come back, I think is great. A good draw against Barnsley. A good draw against Burton, maybe. You're not getting a side of below or above you either way, just around getting a points on you. So you'd say that probably isn't the end of the world. It is 3 straight defeats after that. Leighton Orient, Bristol Rovers and Oxford United. But let's look at Cambridge before that. It was looking like a downward spiral. Neil Harris, I think, has come in and gone, look, this isn't perfect. It's not what he wants to be looking at in the long term, but you can focus on the short term, and he's much better than when he came in initially. He stabilised aspects of that club that needed stabilising. They got some important results, and I don't think they're going to go down. I'm pretty confident saying Cambridge are going to be safe. Neil Harris, he knows what he's doing. He's well experienced. He's got a good record in League One, a decent record in the Championship. Didn't work out at Gillingham, but look at Gillingham now in League Two. They haven't set the world alight since he left the football club. I think he probably got misjudged there, to be honest. I think he's a really good manager at this level and knows this level exceptionally well. A good fit for Cambridge. I hated Mark Bonnet going, but looked as though that might have worked out better. He's been a positive addition.
Weren't you?
I was good. I think he's a top coach, and I'm not quite sure where he's going to go now. Club surprise package. Tommy going to giggle, and you can giggle away through to actually opening this segment because you got the first club in there.
Yeah, I have. You've already mentioned them just there. Leyton Orient. I think they were one of the form teams in December, and they didn't seem too fazed by losses to high-flying Bolton and Derby. And when you can have the resilience and the character in your side to not let 2 losses against top opposition, when you kind of sit there, whether the players and the manager would kind of admit to this and whether their fan base would, and go, okay, well, we've been turned over by 2 teams that probably won't be in this division next season. So let's just kind of treat those as sort of misfires, and we go again against some of the teams that we know that we can maybe perform more at their level. With the most respect to Leyton Orient, given a side that's come up from League Two and caused all sorts of problems for all sorts of teams. They look a million miles away from the side that lost 4-0 to Pompey at their place in August. They look like they've adapted really well. We probably knew they would. I think some of the recruitment over the summer, you look at the likes of Joe Piggott coming into the football club. I think he's performing well. I just think it's a really good debut season back in League One for the first time in quite a while for Leyton Orient, and I'm really pleased because we actually, I mean, our predictions probably mirrored each other's in terms of Leyton Orient. I think we both knew that they would have a solid establishment kind of season in League One, and that's what it's proved to be at this just over the halfway stage. So massive congratulations to Leyton Orient, and you are my surprise package of December.
Reading also, I had to put in there. Northampton too. I think with Reading, they're at the bottom 4 now for the first time since the middle of September. They've been pushed back with deductions, but Sellers now, I mean, to be fair to him, he's got some important results. He's got some really important results in December. I think we're starting to see maybe what this Reading side are going to do, using Nibs effectively with Aziz and Sam Smith. I think I saw a stat, and it's going to be horrendous. I don't know why I brought it up. It's really embarrassing. I don't know the number, but I know Sam Smith and Harvey Nibs, want to say 16 goal involvements between the 2 of them, and they didn't cost a penny. Of course, both of them on free transfers from Cambridge. That number could be wrong, but I know they've been involved in a high number of their goals.
Shall I have a look while you're chatting?
Go and have a look, because that'll look much better with actual information. But I know that they've been fantastic, and we're starting to see now. The point of that was they're starting to see now what they're looking to do in the forward play, and that's use those of players in almost with that element of pace and purpose. I mean, I look at Victor's on one side and Aziz on the other. They look much quicker, much more fluid on the turnover. Not ready yet to dominate games. They can do that. They did it against Lincoln, not so much against Oxford. But on the break, they look to be really, really quite effective, and they can do it. More financial help over the next couple of weeks or so, bringing in some players that increase that depth, because they are crying out for depth at the moment. And I think Reading, again, we've spoken about the relegation battle. They keep strengthening, and who knows where they could be, because they have got a decent squad there. They had to sort of stabilise a little bit, and they've done that. So fair play to Sellers. I thought he was going to be a manager on the chopping board in the early stages. It seems as though right now he's getting things going, and he's getting some really, really important results together at a really crucial point of the season. Northampton, we've both seen play. Go on.
You were absolutely spot on.
Was it
16 between the 2 of them? Yeah,
amazing.
So that bit can go in.
should have been a bit more. I should have really, really gone with that, and then
you should have done, and then we would have been fine. But here we are.
But there we go. You can prove that I'm not a genius all the time, am I? Let Einstein rest. Let's look at Northampton and some other teams that you've mentioned there. I mean, Northampton's the last team on our list here. Both seen them play. One of us were beaten by them. The other team beat them. Tom, do you want to start with Northampton? They're 9th in the league. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's with no disrespect to Northampton. We weren't expecting them. I think I might have predicted them to finish 22nd. Try and say that a little bit quietly. I think we were probably about that kind of ballpark, and maybe that's a bit of a, there were Northampton fans telling me at the time that that's a bit of a lazy prediction, and I went, oh, okay, we'll see how we go. But yeah, proving us wrong right now. I don't feel like it was long ago since Northampton were kind of hovering above the relegation zone, Wardy. I'm sure you can remember yourself that actually there was a while when there was sort of 17th, 18th, 19th.
Yeah, I remember I went on Gab's show and he put them in. We were sort of ranking the chances of sides that go down, and Northampton were in that conversation.
And now they're 9th. So I mean,
above Rovers, Lincoln,
fair
Charlton.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But great if you're a Northampton fan, and if you have cobblers at your heart, then I'm sure you're absolutely buzzing. The other thing as well we should mention is it doesn't come under the December, I don't think, but I think it was all the awards from November given in December.
Yeah, it started a 2-0 win against Burton on the 11th of November. They beat Blackpool away. They beat Fleetwood 3-0. They got a draw against Carlisle, beat us, beat Lincoln and Chapman, now both back to back in the end of December and the start of January.
They had the Manager of the Month, the Player of the Month award given in December, didn't they, as well? So I suppose that's something else that's deserving of a mention. On to Players of the Month, your favourite bit.
Yes, it's not my favourite bit. It's probably my least favourite bit. It's the bit where we should say, Tom will say, remember to say it. There'll be players here that we don't mention. And if we don't mention the player that you think definitely is Player of the Month, respectfully, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, because we're not worrying about it. Only you are worrying about it, okay? So just think, we're going to name the few that we can remember, because ultimately we can't remember every single game. We didn't, breaking news also, we didn't watch every single game.
No, we didn't.
So there will be some really good players that had great months that we won't even we won't mention them, let's be honest, but we're going to try our best, so bear with us. So before you write that comment going, you forgot this right back that played for Leyton Orient in 2013, it did really well last January. Don't worry about it, delete it, because we didn't know it ever happened. Let's start with Player of the Month that we can remember. Chris Martin, not the one from Coldplay, the striker for Bristol Rovers.
I can't believe that's made it in.
2 goals in December. Did score yesterday, which is a bit annoying because that isn't December, but he has been good for Bristol Rovers. Pinnock at Northampton has been really good. I mean, spoke about how good Northampton have been. Pinnock's been great. Leonard's been great. Bo's been great. That entire Northampton attack really has been phenomenal during that period of time, but Pinnock definitely is a standout. Cashin at Derby County. Let's name some Derby players that have done really well. I've been really impressed by Cashin, definitely is one. James Collins has picked up some important goals in recent weeks. Bolton as well. Dion Charles Carroll's being great. Thomason's been incredible all season, but December's been a real machine in that midfield. Morley signed a new contract. That's irrelevant, but let's just try and name some Bolton players that can maybe get put in there, because I'm just trying to think of players that are going to have a great month that we've forgotten. Cashin in Derby is the biggest one. But Tom, yeah, you can go to detail on Cashin. You took over Cashin. He's been great. But there are a few. Bear with us. Let us know in the comments down below who you put it, but don't put it in a passive-aggressive way. That's all I ask.
Write it as a nice comment and put, great video, lads. Make sure you include that bit. And then put, this player was great as well. Yeah. Such and such. Perfect. Maybe a little bit of a body of text about the player. Thanks for the great video once again.
Yeah, Happy New Year. See you next month.
There we go. I can't believe you've missed out this player. How on earth did you forget him?
If we see one of those comments, I will respectfully remove you from the channel.
There we go. Sorted.
Actually, I probably won't, because now people are going to do it, because we've now said don't do it. So I won't do that. But please don't do it.
Festive joy and all that. We are led to believe, and I think, although it hasn't been confirmed, that quite a lot of people close to Derby County know that the club have exercised the right to extend the deal, which will be music to Derby fans' ears for Erin Cashin. I don't think it matters whether that confirms that he's staying or not. It protects his transfer value a little bit more. It ensures he doesn't leave on a free. He'll be also much harder to get in terms of the suitors that are looking for him. That makes the going into negotiation about it a little bit more tricky. It's also massive for the club financially, if nothing else, really, as well. And he is an absolute dream, particularly, I mean, there's another name, Nelson, that you could name as an absolute rock at the back. His Boxing Day performance alongside Cashin, both of them players, real players. And that is the difference maker in a promotion-winning side, right? You look at Ricardo Santos at Bolton, you look at Erin Cashin at Derby, you look at, I know he's not here anymore, Regan Paul. I'd probably say Connor Shotnessy is your able backup answer to that question. Each and every promotion winning side this season will have a commander-in-chief as a defender who is rock solid, is massive, mountainous, brilliant footballer, and just oozes class, composure and a great attitude of everything they do, and not necessarily the captain, but the captain without the armband. And yeah, that is just a connotation and a characteristic of many of the promoted sides that will end up coming out of this league this season. And Aaron Cashin is in one of those sides in Derby County.
Perfect. Lots of names, and hopefully we've named a few there. We'll have to
Paddy
wait
as
and
well.
see.
Big shout out, Paddy.
Basile's been good at Pompey. Yeah, I mean the entire Peterborough attack have been frightening. Let's be honest. But you know, let's try and narrow it down. But that is going to be a struggle, as I'm sure you'll let us know in the comments below. But anyway, Happy New Year to you all, and it's been really good. Tom, thank you so much for coming back on. I say thank you coming on. You don't really get invited anymore. You actually tell me when you're free before I even mention it. So I don't go. Yeah, this has got to be done. We sort of just go. When are we free? Will be February. I mean, it's going so quick. It's going so
February. Quick. Wow. Christ, that's terrifying, isn't it? Yeah, it's been amazing, mate. It's a bit like when the commentator says thanks to Gary Neville for coming on the Gary Neville podcast. It's a bit like, well, you know, you're in it.
This series you do half own. You don't see half. Let's be honest. You don't see half the revenue it makes, but
but that's fine. I'm happy with that.
You're half
don't
of
you
it.
worry,
You don't
mate.
see half of the profit.
No, I'm man of the people, and I'm here to help you out always. You know that.
50p
mate.
Anyway, mate. That's what it makes.
It's because of all those comments that you've removed of people saying we missed out players and the players bit. It's good because it comes at the end of the video, so view retention down a little bit for that bit, so not many people watch that. Anyway, pleasure. Happy New Year to everybody out there. Thank you for sticking with us on this series. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have bringing it to you, and we'll see you in February.
See you later. Take care. Subscribe as well. 2024,
do
the
that.
year of the 10K. Can we do it in 2024?
Yes, we
Let's wait
can.
and see. Take care.